Being female in the field can be challenging for the strongest of women. They often have to work harder. They have to prove themselves over and over to continually demand respect. Maureen McNamara comes from Philly with edge and attitude. From a 15-year career in dispatching and customer service to being the GM of a successful branch in Norristown, Pennsylvania. She's literally, seen and heard it all and then some. Let's hear where the work took her. So, Maureen, thanks for joining me today. Glad you came
Nice to
in.
see you. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been, I think October last year when I first met you.
Yeah, at the manager training.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember sitting there, kind of like just reading the room a little bit, and you were there. And within a few minutes, I started to notice that, you're kind of a no bullshit kind of person. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, basically that's what I've been told for the last few years. Probably actually since I started.
Since you started the working? Or?
Yeah, since I started at Tustin, I've kind of made that name for myself, not putting up with anything. I noticed that people who do put up with stuff get walked on. So
You don't like that, huh?
No.
So prior to that, how did you get to where you're at now? Like, as far as have you always been in this industry?
No, so I actually used to work in a doctor's office, and the owner, Tuss, came in, and it was a crazy, front desk. It was an orthopedic doctor, so you can only imagine how busy they are. And he came in with his son and slips me a note and tells me to call him.
Like on the sly?
Yeah, and I was like...
He's poaching. He's poaching you while you're at the job.
Yeah. So I take the note and I'm just like, I just toss it to the side.
It's like this old man. What's he trying to hook up with you or something?
And I was like, okay, this guy is a little weird. Whatever. So I go home and I'm talking to my dad about it. And I was like, yeah, this guy came in today and he slips me this note to call him that he has a job for me. And my dad's like, well, why don't you call him? I was like, I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to call this random man and say, what kind of job do you have for me? So I ended up calling him.
If there was a job.
Yeah, if there even was a job,
right,
who knows?
Right.
And so I did end up calling him, and then as I'm talking to him, I realized, because I worked part-time at Outback also, so I worked at the...
Outback, the steakhouse.
Yeah, the steakhouse. I was waitress, and I realized that him and his wife would come in the restaurant. So I knew, he looked familiar to me. I didn't put two and two together right away. And as we're talking, he's telling me where he's from. And I'm like, wait, do you come in Outback Steakhouse? And he's like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, I knew you looked familiar, but I couldn't put two and two together. And I really couldn't engage with him at the time because it was so busy.
Right.
So then he's like, I really want you to come in for an interview. So that's when I came in.
For what, though?
For dispatcher, service coordinator. Yeah.
And did you know anything about HVAC?
No, I knew nothing about it. Was I knew
just an opportunity.
Yeah, basically opportunity, customer service. So I obviously had a strong customer service background. So I was like, I'll give it a shot and see. And here I am, 15 and a half years later.
So to give it a shot, you and I want to go back to this. So this man shows up at your work, your office, the doctor's office. How long have you been in the doctor's office?
It was only a couple months. It was my first job back to work, full-time job back to work after I had my daughter. So she was 2. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go back to work full-time. I'm like, I started applying. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I got, and I was like, we'll see what happens. It wasn't my dream job. It was just kind of getting my feet wet to get back into the full-time job life.
So the doctor's office was the first step back into the workforce. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden now you have this opportunity sitting in front of you for HVAC service. What do they call it? Service dispatcher.
Yeah, service. Well, at the time it was a dispatcher.
Okay.
Over the years, they've kind of reworked the job title to service coordinator. So it was, it was only myself and one other person at the time.
How many technicians?
We had probably 30 at the time.
So were you splitting the techs?
So we split the techs, and then there was 2 service managers, and then
is that job important?
Yes, very important.
Do you think that people really understand how important that job is?
No. If you would ask somebody, they think we just sit around with our feet up all day.
What does that feel like knowing that they're thinking that about your job?
little do they know that if you didn't have that person in place, there would be no coordination between the office and the field.
Can I be honest with you? I actually was one of those people.
I'm sure you were.
I was one of those people that thought that.
Yeah.
I got stories. Yeah, I did not understand how important that position is.
Yeah.
And office period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people still don't.
Yeah. No,
So-
definitely.
So you have some experience there as far as dealing with the people that didn't respect the position.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't respect it because, and I think there's still to this day there's some level of not knowing, and knowledge is power. So the more you know, but people are blind to that. They don't realize, oh, you didn't answer my phone call. Well, that's because I was on the phone with a customer handling a service call, or I was taking a delivery at the back door, or getting your parts checked in, or on the phone with another technician, giving him a PO so he can go pick up a part for a critical call. It's like there's no patience, or like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were that busy.
So doctor's office to this sounds like chaos is what I'm hearing. Is that?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it chaos?
Yeah, I actually I have a sign on my desk that I've had since I started that says chaos coordinator. So it's always been like a name that we've just had. Like,
yeah.
you're literally coordinating the chaos day in and day out.
You hear a lot of excuses in that job.
Oh yeah. I've probably heard I heard some funny ones.
Tell me, like, let's go through a couple of them. I gotta hear.
So I had a tech call out one time because he had a tick on his dick.
What?
And
Shit.
and he tells me this, and I'm like, okay, I didn't need to know that. You could have just told me you have a medical problem, like, and go about your day. We didn't need to know, that's what was going on. I had another tech tell me,
Oh fuck.
oh, I can't go to it was like a vet for a service call for a vet. I can't go there. I'm allergic to animals. I'm like, well, you're not going to be in the building. It's fine. No, I'm allergic to cats. I can't step foot in the building because he didn't want to do it. So
Wow.
when they don't want to do something, they come up with any and every excuse that you might want to believe. And I'm just like, no, you're going. Bye. Click.
And you dispatch them anyway.
Yeah. And I'm like, if you don't like it, call your manager. I don't have time for this.
Wow. Has it been tough for you in the industry?
Yeah, in the beginning, definitely. I think it took a lot to earn the respect that I have now.
Is that because you're a woman?
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about that.
There wasn't a lot of females. When I started, it was, we had one person that did the billing was a female. We had one sales rep that was actually a female, and then it was me. So it was a small office at the time. It was nowhere near the size it is now. We were shoved in a corner, basically, like two little cubicles in the middle of a room. There was no space for even. So it was, and then it's, they push back, and they don't think you're going to push back. They're so used to just do whatever you want to do. Oh, okay, that's fine. No, it's not fine. You're doing it.
Right.
You're going. Sorry.
Wow. What an interesting story. Hearing how you got into it. So how long has it been? You that position was what, 15 years?
So I was a dispatcher coordinator for like 9 years, and then I moved into customer service manager. So as we continued to grow and hire, I was responsible for training and overseeing our dispatchers. So we went from myself and one other person to 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you have that onboarding, that training down pat?
Yes, definitely. I actually started recruiting from Outback, the girls I worked with, because I kept my part-time job through the years, and I started bringing them over. And I'm like, because, the customer service is such a big piece of that, on top of the multitasking, because you're running around like a crazy person when you're a server.
Yeah.
And it carries over to the multitasking in that position.
Right.
Which you would never relate, because you're like, it's so different, but it really isn't different.
Wow. No, there's a lot of that's a big important piece. I think definitely in the industry is that customer service aspect. And I mean, even technicians, I was fortunate enough to come up in a company where the owner was like all about it and taught it to me young,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. We were taught it from, I had it going into it, but it was like drilled into our heads that like your customers are, the most important piece. We would, one of my favorite sayings now is the customer's perception is our reality. So regardless of how you feel about it, if they think differently, that's what it is. So
I like that. That's good.
yeah.
So looking back at where you're at now, and hey, congratulations! I heard you just got the big promotion, the big nod for
Yeah.
the GM role, right?
Yeah.
So
First female GM in Tustin.
wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Not first in management, but first GM. So
What is that? How you feel?
I'm excited for it. I definitely think there's a lot to learn. It's funny because my GM actually got moved up to VP, and he now is responsible for 4 other offices. So when I got promoted, I'm like, oh, I have so much to learn. Like I'm so behind everybody else because I don't have the field experience. Well, little did I realize that you don't always need the field experience. You do, like, it's everything else because, once he started meeting with the people that he has now reporting to him, he's like, you're so much further than everybody else. And these are people that have been in the industry for like 20 plus years.
Wow. I think that in everything happens at that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And I think is it fair to say that's probably played a big major piece?
Yeah,
in
definitely.
Understanding how you actually know what the technicians go through too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sympathize with them. It's when it's hot, it's 95 degrees out. I wouldn't want to be on a roof. Sometimes, a lot of times when it's that hot, we'll run like Gatorade out to them or water bottles or like stop by and bring them lunch or something just for that like distraction from that heat. Even if it's for a few minutes, it's important. There's always been a disconnect between the field and the office. So just trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah. It's been one that wall. I call it a wall because it's always there.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you tear that down?
Yeah, I think the more you interact with the field, engage, show up, reach out, I feel like that helps. I know that's how I've formed the relationships that I have with my field techs, just from being there. Like it's like most days a calm voice on the other side of the phone.
Right.
And then you start, the more you talk to them, the more you engage with them, you start to have that relationship where they trust you and, they come to you for like more than just work stuff. Like it's,
Yeah, you start getting
kid's sick.
personal.
Yeah, it's all that other stuff, talk about your family and stuff like that.
Who's helped you get to this point? Is it all Maureen? I mean,
No,
you mentioned Tuss, the previous owner,
Yeah.
for that, but
Ben and I were side by side. We both were service coordinators together.
wow.
So we've kind of moved up together through the years.
Is that your security? Like, is that your
Yeah. Pretty much. My work husband.
Nice.
I guess you could say. We've had our battles though. Like we're very different personality wise. Like he's very like slow paced and I'm very like, we got to get it done. Like, let's go. Like, let's move to the finish line.
Worst argument?
Yeah.
What's the worst argument?
Him and I don't, it's not that we argue. We don't always agree.
Give me something that, cause I get it. Like you come to you agree to disagree or however that's worked,
Yeah.
right?
I think when I first started out in the field, Ben was a single guy, like not married, no kids. I'm a single mom with a 2-year-old. We would go head to head a lot when it came to like, I got to leave early because I got to go to my daughter's recital. Well, I don't understand why that's important. Well, because you don't have kids. Now, my daughter's 17 and Ben has a 2-year-old.
Oh, it's reversed.
So now it's like, I didn't realize 17 years ago or, 15 years ago how important it is to be at your kid's Christmas show. And I'm like, oh, yeah, funny. I'll cover you this time, though.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, give me something that you've screwed up, unless you're batting 1,000.
No, nobody's perfect. You learn every day. There was a mass email that went out.
Mass email?
Yeah, like years ago to our field techs, and one of the techs responded. He's a wise ass, and he responded, and I was having a day because I was like, it's crazy. So I told him, I was like, well, if you don't want to do it, we'll make you do it.
You told him
And
that.
yeah, and it sparked a whole thing in the field where they were like pissed off, like didn't talk to me, like
Oh, they were
freaking
getting
out.
there for
Yeah.
you. They're, yeah.
So I ended up having one of them, and not like a senior guy who was like buddies with this technician. And he like freaked out on me, cursed me out. I cursed him back because I was like, I don't know who you're talking to. Like, and we ended up not talking for 2 years. I was like,
Are
I
you
will not answer
serious?
your phone call. Like, I was holding that grudge. I was like, until I get an apology, I'm not talking to him. I'm not answering his phone calls. I'm not doing anything for him. And finally, and this is all when I was,
2 years?
oh yeah,
So you're good at the silent treatment,
yeah,
huh?
yep.
Wow.
So if he needed something, like he knew the only response he was getting was a text message. Like, don't call me. I don't want to hear your voice. Don't come up to me and say hi to me. And then finally he did come up to me and apologize. But it took 2 years. And I was like, well, I'll never send a mass email like that again.
Wow. Did you what was your answer to how he apologized?
We were actually at like a company event, and I was like avoiding him like the plague because I saw him there, and I was like, oh God, I don't even want to acknowledge that, he's here. And then I was standing at the bar, and he came over, and he's like, I want to buy you a drink, and I just want to tell you that I'm really sorry for, the way I talked to you 2 years ago. And at first I was like, not ready to let that go yet. But then I was finally like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And then we started talking, and, just kind of led into, now he's like, reaches out to me all the time. Like, constantly checks in, calls. Like, it's just crazy how you went from like one extreme to the other.
Would you say that's a big key when you're working with the field?
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to have a relationship. They have to trust you.
If someone, I look at this because I've seen this challenge a lot, right? And you see it from both sides. You see it from the office versus the field. You see it from the field versus the office. What kind of advice do you have for those situations? Like if I'm the tech, right? And I'm calling you and I'm like, hey, what is it? What do I need to do, Maureen, to get this understanding or get them to understand me or me understand them? What are you going to tell them?
Just be yourself and be honest, but don't be like, I feel like a lot of it is the way you communicate, the tone in your voice. If people are too stern or pushy, you're gonna get pushback. It really comes down to the tone of somebody's voice. Like, you might be having a bad day, but you don't know what that kind of day they're having. And I always tell I tell my field guys, and I also tell my dispatchers, I'm like, if you're having a moment or you're having a day, just say, hey, can I call you right back? Take a minute, and then when you're in the right headspace, call back. Because, otherwise it's gonna blow up. You're gonna get pissed off, they're gonna get pissed off. They're gonna get pissed off because they feel like you're pissed off. Or when you push back, it's not their job it's not our job to fight with you. Like, it's not our job to know that you got in a fight with your wife this morning and you're having a bad day. Like, people bring their personal life into work, and it's, I'm all for, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. But, if you're not in the right mindset and your tone is like too abrasive, people react to that.
I'm hearing you, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say this. I feel like you have a special place in your heart for technicians.
Yeah.
In the field.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes, I do. I will stick up for the techs all the time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Ben's the same way. Like, Ben and I both are like, well, if we don't have our techs, we don't have work. Like, that's our, you can get customers, you can keep your customers, but the techs, if you don't have that relationship with them.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That's it. Have you ever been out in the field to work with the techs?
No. I've gone on a roof with, a guy, but and it's funny because I was just away a month ago, and I was in Florida, and I looked down, and I'm like, oh, the unit's frozen. And I'm like talking to my dad, and I'm like, oh, you should probably tell them to call the HVAC company and tell them that it's probably low on charge.
You're troubleshooting.
And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I said, it's probably low on charge, that's why. And he ended up telling me the next day, like, oh, yeah, that's what the guy said was wrong with it. So it's funny, over the years, you kind of, from hearing, I'm reading service tickets and interacting with the field and stuff like that, it's like you can kind of do a little bit of troubleshooting. Not that I could physically go out there. I mean, I could probably YouTube something, but right. You can kind of make suggestions like, oh, it might be this. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, I've read thousands of service tickets over the years.
Yeah.
So-
No, you definitely pick up some knowledge just by reading. You ever feel like quitting?
Yeah, not so much anymore, but I think it's because but when in the beginning, like when I was in dispatch, I'm like, oh, this is not for me. This place is crazy. Like, this is way too much.
What
Like-
brought you though? Like you're saying way too much, and you actually contemplated. Oh, I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah,
Why? Dive into that a little bit.
Just the busyness of it, like the summer when it's 95 degrees and you're like 60 service calls deep and you can't, the techs are like starting to fall off track, and it's like, they're done for the day, you're done for the day, you're done listening to people complain and scream at you, and it's like, all right, I'm about to just walk out, like.
So thanks again for coming and being a part of this podcast. There had to be something about this podcast that you wanted to be a part of, and what is that?
I think there is just such a huge disconnect between the field and the office, and it's the being aware of like what both sides of it. Like we building that respect and that trust and that loyalty and like getting there. It's so hard now when you don't know. So awareness.
How important is the field as far as a lot of people, they think we're just wrench turners and this and that, but the jobs are pretty important out there.
The field is so important. The field is what, if we didn't have the field, we wouldn't have the customer. We wouldn't have the work. We would be pretty much nothing. And then, the next and most important, in my opinion, is dispatch, because they keep it going. So the field's doing the work and dispatch is making the wheel turn.
And the office supports that too. So it's like it's got to be a team thing.
Yeah, definitely. And teamwork makes the dream work.
Yep.